Well, I'm Lauren King, and I'm here with Mr. Ellis Leatherwood. Today is Thursday, March 31st, 2011. Can't believe March is gone. Here in your lovely home at Carroll Village, so thank you so much for having me again.
You're very welcome.
And Mr. Leatherwood, I'll just start off by asking when and where you were born, please.
Okay, I was born June 21st, 1929 in Mount Airy, Maryland. My folks lived in town, and we lived on the Frederick County side of Mount Airy, just in the edge of town, so to speak, and went to Mount Airy schools, Carroll County schools. Walked about 3/4 of a mile to school, and I was the middle son of 3 boys in our family. Had an older brother and a younger brother, and we all went there to school. We did, I guess, the usual things that kids at that age do. I had a cousin who lived next door, and another cousin who lived 2 doors up. So my father's family lived in Mount Airy, and so I had family around, and it was fun. We got together quite often.
And who actually lived in your household with you, besides your brothers?
My mother and father, when my mother and father were married, they stayed at my mother's home. I grew up in my grandfather's home, and his brother lived next door, and so his children and my mother were first cousins. I was first cousin once removed. Their youngest daughter and my older brother were essentially the same age, so we grew up together, so to speak.
Very close-knit family.
And then one of my father's brothers lived one house beyond that. And as a matter of fact, growing up, he was a huckster who raised chickens and sold eggs and produce in the summertime in Washington, D.C. area. And when I was 13, I started working for him. The first summer, I worked just in the summertime in his garden, so to speak. And my older brother had worked for him, and then he started college, so I went to work for Uncle Guy. And all through high school, then I would work after school for 2 hours and on Saturday. And for a while, I worked an hour in the morning before school.
Oh my goodness, you had.
And then 2 hours after school and on Saturday. So I started working early in life, but I enjoyed it.
Now, may I ask, were you working to help support the household, or was this just for you to have your own spending money?
No, this was what I earned was my money. And it wasn't much, but you were learning to deal with things, and it was good. I was glad I had the opportunity to work, and I have always thought it was a good experience to start when I did.
That's good. So it sounds like you probably grew up with a very strong work ethic.
I think so.
I would imagine you probably carried on then through your whole working career.
And then, I always say I worked from the time I was 13 till I was 68, I guess.
Okay. All right. Well, that's 55 years.
Because we moved here when I was 68, so.
Okay.
I worked at one job or another up till then.
Well, let's go back. So you went through school.
We went through school. We of course I was in school during the World War II. I was in Boy Scouts in Mount Airy. One of the few things I remember about Scouts was this was during the war, of course, and Scouts were assigned as messengers for the air raid wardens in town.
Oh.
So as kids, everybody had their lights out at night, and the air raid wardens were out on their job, and the kids were the messengers were running around helping the air raid wardens. It was a lot of fun for a kid.
Oh, wow, I'm sure.
I mean, we didn't think we were going to be bombed, so it was fun for us to be out.
Right. It didn't quite seem like, but that would happen.
everybody impressed on us the fact that we were doing a necessary job.
Yes,
and it was fun, so that made it
that made it better. Right.
But
right.
I never progressed very far in Scouts. But I don't know, at that point in time, Mount Airy had a Scout troop, as I said. Actually, Scouting was on and off in Mount Airy for that period of time, and they had just started a new troop when I was 12. So we got into it, but it was not a driving force in my life as a kid.
Okay.
And after high school, I went to Western Maryland College. I graduated in 1950. Was an ROTC student, so that was the summer the Korean War started when I graduated from college. So basically I was waiting to go in the Army, because by the time I received my commission, which was in August actually, some of my friends were already going in. So I guess the spring of 1951 I went on active duty. And that was my first real experience away from home, because going from Mount Airy to Westminster to college wasn't that much of a deal. I went home on weekends and all that kind of stuff. So I went to Fort Knox, and that was a good trip, and that was a real experience.
I'm sure, to say the least.
But I spent time at Fort Knox. I went to Fort Benning, of course, to the infantry school. And then I went to Japan and Korea. And in the spring of '53, I got out. I was wounded, incidentally, on the last day of 1952, December 31st, 1952.
Do you mind me asking
I
what
was
happened?
wounded, and I spent 3 months in a hospital in Japan, and then I was sent home and released back to the reserve. So that was my military experience.
May I ask what happened? How were you wounded? Was it?
Oh, a
If that's
mortar
okay.
shell. A mortar shell went off behind me in the trench, and I was hit in the shoulder and the hip and the leg. I was wearing a flak jacket. I say that saved my life. I don't know, but I say that because it spared my spine, and I'm sure that was an important factor.
What can you explain? A flat jacket? Is that what you said?
A flak jacket,
Flak.
we called it. Yeah, it was like, well, a bulletproof vest.
Okay.
People call them now. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, okay.
But they were mandatory for Korean when you were online in Korea, and of course, in the summertime people didn't want to wear them, but this was wintertime, and
So it served a couple
you were glad
purposes.
for the extra protection, but it
Right.
was protection. It really was. Now, of course, when you see these fellows today in Iraq and Afghanistan and all the equipment they wear, I don't see how they can get around, quite personally.
They're just like way down.
But this flak jacket was an important piece of equipment for us, and
Well, you can vouch for that.
I say it helped me. Anyway,
Thank you for sharing that, by the way.
before I let's see, I was home on leave before I went to Korea, and Jan and I became engaged, and then when I came back, we got married.
Can you talk a little bit about how you met her?
Oh yeah, my mother and father took in school teacher boarders at that particular time, and one of the women that they had as a teacher was involved in a group of young teachers who played cards once a week, and they would often ask me to play with them, and so I did, and we would play bridge or canasta most of the time. And when Jan came to teach in the middle of the year, well, the girl who was living at our house said, "We have a new teacher. We ought to get her involved." And I says, "Well, sure. You know, one more girl, one
girl for
man,
you.
and 6 or 7 or 8 women playing cards. You could always take on another."
Quite a ratio
So
for you. Good for you.
that's how I met Jan. They invited her to play cards, and I met her, and we dated a little bit, and she asked me to go to she was a chaperone at their senior prom that year, and she asked me to go with her, and so we started dating then, and dated through that year until I went in the Army. But came out, and I'd majored in biology at Western Maryland, minored in education, so I was looking for a teaching job, and here in Carroll County we knew the supervisor well, and I was over at Western Maryland watching a track meet in the springtime, watching a track meet, and he was over there, and I started talking with him, and I asked him, I had applied for a job and all this kind of stuff. And he says something about I was going to get married, yes. He says, well, I can get you and your wife, your new wife, both a job at Sykesville if you want to do that. So I said, sure. So I ended up teaching 8th grade science and 7th grade math 1 year at Sykesville, and she taught girls phys ed. So we moved to Sykesville. And during that first summer, a friend of mine got me a job at Springfield Hospital in the laboratory. They were expanding and moved into a new building, and the summer job that I had became permanent, and they asked me if I wanted to stay. So I decided to stay, and that's how I spent 30 years with the state of Maryland in the laboratory at Springfield, well, in the state system.
I guess that was more up your alley.
Most of the time at Springfield.
More up your alley being a biology major.
Well, it was, yes. Biology was a good start for lab work, and I enjoyed it very much, and so I was always glad that I stayed there.
That's good. So when did you retire then?
I retired in summer of 83, and or 84, 83. And shortly thereafter, then I started a chair caning business at home. The chair you're sitting in, I caned.
It's very nice.
we did that until we moved here to the village.
Well, it sounds like you did a lot of things throughout all those years that you truly enjoyed, which I think is quite remarkable, because a lot of people don't always quite find those niches, let alone a couple.
I was always very glad not to have to search for another job. I was glad that I enjoyed what I was doing, and I did. And I thought what I was doing was at least somewhat worthwhile.
Sure.
So, I was pleased with the whole situation.
And I know in talking to your wife that, I know you did a lot of traveling, a lot of camping.
Yes. Our vacations were all camping vacations, well, mostly camping vacations. And as a result, we traveled all over this country, and we've been in 49 states and most of Canada. And I guess the only trip as a civilian I made out of the United States was to Bermuda. We didn't camp in Bermuda. One summer we flew with some friends to Bermuda.
Oh, okay.
But our camping was all in this country and in Canada. I guess our best trip was to Alaska. That was our last big trip, as a matter of fact. And we spent 7 weeks on the road that time.
That's a long trip.
It was fun. We enjoyed it. But we've been all over this country, and twice to the West Coast. Most of our stops were in national and state parks.
Okay.
I guess because we camped. But
Right.
I mean, those were the things we saw. You remember the PBS program about the national parks? This fellow, Burns, I think,
I'm not sure.
put on a series of programs on the national parks. And it was amazing to sit and watch it and say, well, we've been there, or we saw that, or this kind of thing,
So after you'd already been.
So many of our trips were to national parks or state parks and things. And so, yeah, we've enjoyed that kind of thing.
what prompted you to first try camping? Is that something you did growing up with your family?
No, no. As a matter of fact, our family didn't vacation. My dad had a number of different jobs, and we didn't vacation. But one would think after coming out of the Army, I would have had enough of that kind of life. But Jen was interested, and we borrowed a tent from a friend of mine in reserve, an old Army tent, if you believe it, to go camping the first time we went. And we went to New Hampshire, and it rained every night, and you'd think, well, that would certainly be the end of it. But it wasn't. We enjoyed it. We had a good time. And so I guess after that year, we bought a tent, and we camped in a tent for a while. And then we bought a pop-up trailer and camped in that. And then we bought a van that I took all the back out of and built our camping equipment into. So you could take it out and put it in. You could take out the camping equipment, put the tending equipment, and put the seats back in and that kind of thing. So we used the van for a while. First time we went west, we used a van. And then we bought a second van and did the same thing. And we used it the second time we went to California. And then we bought the pickup and went to Alaska. The pop-up and pickup truck and went to Alaska. And then Jan liked the van. And so we got rid of the truck and the pickup, the truck and the pop-up trailer, and bought another van. But we didn't camp in it much because that's after we had moved here.
Okay.
And we didn't camp much after that. But we've had those kind of camping adventures, yeah.
Now, I know you have a daughter, and did you instill that in her? Did you go camping with her? Does she have a love for camping like you all did?
We did, but she was not a great camper. She does not camp now. I don't know. When she was growing up, we oftentimes spent one of our vacation weeks in a cabin in West Virginia State Park. We did that for 6, 7, 8 years, I guess. But then we would still camp some of the times. And she went with us camping, but she was not a great camper, I'll have to say that.
I have to say that would be me. I prefer a hotel.
And, so we moved here to the village.
What prompted you to come to this village, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, quite frankly, we had had and seen problems people had with older parents waiting too late to do something, or having to have kids do something. And we decided with one daughter we didn't want her to have to do something with us when we got to the point we couldn't take care of ourselves. So we looked at here, and I had a cousin who lived here with her husband. We visited them, and we decided that it would be better for us and it would be better for her if we moved to Carroll County Village. And so we did, and I think everybody was content with it.
Right, right. Okay, all right. So you're in a very nice community within Carroll County, the Carroll County community, aren't you?
Well, we still consider us being home because this is only 16 miles from where we lived for 43 years.
Right.
And I said earlier that we lived our first year in Sykesville, and then after that we moved to a house on Route 27 just outside of Mount Airy, and lived there for 43 years.
In the same house?
In the same house,
43 years.
For 43 years before we came here. But we liked that very much. But we thought it was time to do something else, and we have always been glad that we did. I mean, it's been great for us. It might not be for everybody, but it has been great for us.
Yeah.
We would recommend it to anyone who is interested in that kind of a lifestyle. Not only the village, this village, but any retirement center. I think
Right.
there are so many things to do. There are so many things you can do, or you don't have to,
Right.
and you can be involved as much as you want, or vice versa.
Or
So,
not.
and being here, we're close to McDaniel College. I still go back to a few things. Actually, I didn't go to any reunions until my 50th, which
Oh.
may seem strange because I was in stone's throw of it all those years and never went back. I would go back to football games and, activities. I would go to some of those kinds of things, but never to a reunion.
Yeah.
But then I went to my 50th and I enjoyed it, so I went back to my 60th, and it's nice to be this close. We used to go to Theater on the Hill all the time. I really enjoyed Theater on the Hill. We haven't been for a little while. I think, well, that's changed too, I guess. But that was one thing that we went to a lot and really enjoyed while we were still in Mount Airy, and then after we came here. But the college, of course, has changed tremendously since I was there, and as has Westminster.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I mean, all of Carroll County. Mount Airy, nothing in downtown Mount Airy is as it was when I was a kid. I mean, of course, in later years, while we were still in the area, it changed. But I mean, what we used to call Mount Airy, the downtown section, is nothing like it was when I was a kid. And Westminster either. I went to Western Maryland and would walk to the Methodist Church, which all the way through town, and I don't know whether there's a single business that was there in 1946.
Yeah.
There might be, but you could
Right.
probably count them on one hand if there is.
Right, right.
The library is where the Catholic Church used to be, and
I never knew that.
there was an active train station, and of course all that's gone. There
Progress,
were
right?
a lot of different stores, but yes,
That's what
everything
they call
changes.
progress, right?
Then it was basically a one-street town. I mean, of course, residentially, but the business was a one-street town. And now the business is off. Not really. There's a lot of business downtown, but so much more has expanded away from the downtown section.
Right, right.
Just as Mount Airy. There's nothing in, all of the business was downtown then, and now all of the business that is very much is out of town.
Yeah.
But things change.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Things
That's
change.
nothing we can do about that, right? We just kind of
No.
go along with
we
it.
wouldn't want them. We wouldn't want them not to.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly. That's a very valid
You
point.
wouldn't want them not to change.
Well, is there any other thoughts or stories or opinions or advice or anything that you'd like to have on this video?
Oh no, I don't know. I've been a very low key person as far as I would assess myself. I have been content with who I am, and as a result, I think I have been low key. We have always been involved in church one way or another, more so when we were younger and more active than at this particular point in time. But it's always been an important part of our lives. And I grew up in a small country church, Prospect Church, and then we went to Methodist Church in Mount Airy, and then we moved here to the Methodist Church in Westminster. But it's always been a background thing. It's always been something that has motivated us to do the things that we do, I believe. And as a result, a low key but an important part of life.
Oh yes, yes, very much so. And it sounds like, like I stated this earlier, that talking to you, it sounds like you've really enjoyed all your different experiences.
I'd have to say that, yeah. Basically, that's true. Basically, that's true.
Well, it sounds like you have a wonderful story to tell. You really do, and I've enjoyed listening to it, and thank you for sharing it with me.
You're very welcome.
And thank you for letting me get to know you.